What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I'm bringing you another iteration of Raikou, but this one is centered around the Lightning Blastoise himself, Magnezone. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and maybe subscribe. It really does help us out a lot and lets us do more for you guys. Now, as for the question of the day, I was trying to think of one while looking over this deck list and realized just how much it parallels the old Blastoise Keldeo deck. I mean, you have Lightning Blastoise in your Magnezone, you have your Lightning Keldeo in Raikou with Thunderlance, and then instead of Russian, it has a Hard Charm attached to it. Then you kind of have the Black Kyurem in Pikachu with the Overspark, where you can relatively easily just delete a Pokemon by discarding a bunch of energy, and then Octillery is just kind of Octillery, but that's beside the point. But yeah, this deck really does parallel the old Blastoise Keldeo, and I kind of like referring to these guys as Lightning Blastoise, Lightning Kyurem, and Lightning Keldeo. But really, I mean, obviously it's its own deck in itself, but it got me thinking, what Pokemon would you like to see have a different typing? Just because I started thinking about what Lightning or what Electric type Keldeo would look like, what Electric type Blastoise would look like, and technically Black Kyurem is relatively electric in itself, although it is still technically Ice Dragon, so I just decided to forego that one. But if you had to ask me, I would say that, well, first of all, I think that there are two types of different typing Pokemon. First of all, you can say, okay, is there a Pokemon that doesn't have a type that it definitely should? So if you want to go that way with this question of the day, feel free. But another way you can go is to think, well, what Pokemon is there that I think would be cool just to have a completely new typing, just completely different than what it is, and of course that would change the artwork respectively. For the first part of that, I would say that I think Luxray should be dark electric instead of just electric because, I mean, you know, logic in the fact that it has a very dark color scheme. It gets Bite and Crunch, and it really just looks like a dark Pokemon, except it's not a dark Pokemon, which I just find infuriating. So I want to say Luxray being a dark and electric type for a Pokemon that I think should just have a different typing. And as for one that just has a completely different typing, completely new, I'm going to have to go old school. I think a Fire-type Blastoise would be absolutely epic, just because, I mean, you have, first of all, Blastoise with a red color scheme, with a red and kind of, I guess, darker shell color scheme. Reminiscent, oh, I guess that's not Bowser. Never mind, completely forget the Bowser analogy. But I think Blastoise with, like, a red body, a dark shell, and then having those two cannons in its back shooting out fire, I think would be absolutely ridiculous. I think that would be so, so cool. And on the same note, I mean, the Bulbasaur line would be, Bulbasaur line as a fire type would be kind of cool because instead of the bulb and plant on the back, you would just have like a little fire and then a bigger fire and then an absolute bonfire on the back of Venusaur. But I still think a fire type Blastoise would be the coolest. So let me know what you guys think. Which Pokemon should have a... Well, which Pokemon do you think should have an alternate typing, and which Pokemon would you like to see just get a completely new typing? Just have, like, essentially an Alola form, but it doesn't have to be related to Alola necessarily in any way. But anyway, on to the deck, like I said, centered around Raikou. I just did an Electrode version of this deck, so you already know what this guy does. Thunderlance, 50 plus 20 for each Lightning Energy, and then Shining Body is a Hard Charm if Raikou has any Lightning on it. And I'm using Pikachu this time because, I mean, this deck is actually a budget deck. It technically is, even though I have an EX in here. And not gonna lie, this full art Pikachu-EX is worth the exact same as this Octillery. I am not even kidding you. So, yes, this is a budget deck. Pikachu is our other attacker with the Overspark attack for 3 energy. Well, a Lightning and a double colorless, but we only run Lightning in this deck, so it's gonna be 3 Lightning. Does 50 times discard all the Lightning energy attached to this Pokemon, and does 50 times the number of energy cards you discarded. So basically you can just get 4 energy on Pikachu and delete a Pokemon. That's really nice if you run up against something that Raikou would kind of have trouble knocking out in itself, like a Mega Mewtwo or something like that. Raikou would need an absolute ton of energy. I believe it would need 8 energy to one-shot a Mega Mewtwo, while Pikachu you can just put 5, or yeah, I guess it would have to be unfortunately. Well, no, it need 4 with a Fighting Fury Belt to knock out a Mega Mewtwo. So that's what Pikachu is there for the matchups where Raikou simply would need too much energy in order to be able to knock it out. And then the acceleration, we have Magnezone with the Magnetic Circuit. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a Lightning Energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. This is how we just get a ton of energy into our hand, slap it down onto Pikachu or Raikou, and then go from there. And then as for the draw support, because this is a budget deck, we cannot use Shaman, so we are running Remoraid and Octillery, 2/2 of that for the Abyssal Hand during your turn. You may draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. Obviously, this is once during your turn. So Octillery is great for that, just being like, well, I have a low hand, I'm just going to draw a couple more cards. And even having 2 Octillery, the abilities stack, so you can Abyssal Hand once, then play it out, Abyssal Hand twice, and then go from there. So it's really cool, just a nice way of not having Shaman. It's a slower Shaman, but a lot more consistent throughout the game. As for the items, we're running 1 Professor's Letter. I have not used this card in a very long time. However, in this deck, because you are attaching from your hand with Magnezone, having Professor's Letter be able to get you 2 energy is great. Running 3 Rare Candy, because, I mean, we're running Magnezone, and we want to get Magnezone up as soon as possible, so you want to run a pretty heavy number of Rare Candy in order to have it when you need it. We are also running 1 Super Rod to put some stuff back in our deck that might get knocked out or discarded, like if we have to discard all of our Octillery and Magnezone. If we just have an absolutely horrible Sycamore, we don't just automatically lose. We can Super Rod those things back into the deck to use later. Running 1 Switch in case we start with in case a Magnezone or an Octillery gets Lysandre up and we don't want to attach the necessary energy to retreat. That's why a Switch is in there. I would actually recommend running a little heavier line of switching cards, like Switch and Escape Rope or Switch and Olympia or something like that, just because Lysandering up a Magnezone with a Raikou that has a ton of energy on the bench to where you cannot attach and your opponent is able to just deck you out is a horrible way to lose. However, I don't know, I like this version. It's been working for me. However, if you try it out, I would recommend running at least 1 more way of switching. Running 4 Trainers Mail to help with consistency of this deck. Just search for the top 4 cards of your deck. Well, I guess look at the top 4 cards of your deck and then grab 1 item or 1 trainer card you find there that isn't Trainer's Mail. Man, if you could train Trainer's Mail, that would be so ridiculously cool. But regardless, we're running 4 Ultra Ball to get everything out. This is our only method of searching in this deck. You can run Level Ball. Unfortunately, with the deck list, I kind of ran out of room. However, okay, one thing I would suggest, actually, if you're going to run this deck, remove the Brigette. I don't use it that much, but I don't know. I still just can't bring myself to get rid of it because of how much it helps with the setup when you do get it turn 1. I would get rid of the Brigette, get rid of 1 of the Fighting Fury Belts, add a Level Ball and another Switch. But hey, that's my opinion. You guys test this out for yourself and see what works for you. That's just my opinion if you guys want to try out this deck and you're not me, because a lot of these are built to my preferences, like having the Brigette there and the only 1 Switch card. But again, my preference. We are also running 4 VS Seeker to reuse all of our supporters, pretty standard. And then as for the supporter line, running 3/2 of Sycamore and N. Just, I mean, draw support, consistent draw support, especially early on and then late game. And one cool thing with N in the late game, if you're down to 2 prizes and your opponent's down to 2, you can N and then you can Octillery, because Octillery will give you a fresh hand of 5 after you N while your opponent is stuck at 2 cards, which is just kind of a cool combination. Running 1 Lysandre because Lysandre is ridiculously good. 1 Fisherman to get some energy back out of our discard pile if we loaded up a Raikou and it got knocked out, or we used a big Overspark with Pikachu. Just helps get the energy back into our hand after having to discard it. And then 1 Brigette, because if you draw this thing turn 1, it helps so much with setup, just being able to, well, you have your starter, you have your Pokemon that you start with, play down Brigette, you immediately get a Remoraid, Magnemite, and Raikou. I mean, that's just ridiculously valuable for this deck, so that's why I can't bring myself to get rid of it. As for the stadium, you already know we're running Rough Seas. This is so good with Raikou and its longevity, thanks to Fighting Fury Belt, plus the essential Hard Charm that it has in Shining Body. Then as for the items, running kind of, not items, tools. As for the tools, of course we're running Fighting Fury Belt because this is Raikou and because it's so good. However, I'm deciding to give this a try. Energy Pouch is a really, really cool card in this deck because if the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out from damage by an opponent's attack, put all basic energy attached to that Pokemon into your hand. So say you have like a Raikou loaded up with like 5 or 6 energy and it gets knocked out by your opponent. Well, normally all 6 of those energy would go to the discard pile and you're like, well, crap, I have to use my supporter for a Fisherman to get the energy out, or I can just not attack or have a very weak Thunder Lance. With Energy Pouch, if that's attached to the Raikou, you get all 6 of those energy back into your hand, and with Magnezone's magnetic circuit, you can just slap those things back down immediately. So Energy Pouch, I might even recommend running 2, like running 1 Fighting Fury Belt and then running 2 Energy Pouches, but I mean, hey, I went with the 1-3 and it seems to work for me. Again, my opinion, you guys do whatever works best for you. And then, of course, running 11 regular Lightning Energy just because that's what this deck thrives on. So, yeah, I'm done rambling. Let's just go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Jesus Was Magic, and, I mean, well, depends on your definition of magic, I suppose, but he more than likely was. Either way, with a Dark and, what is that, Dark and Psychic? Yeah, that's what it was. Dark and Psychic deck. I don't even say normal anymore because 99% of the time that is just a Shaman. So we got a Dark and Psychic deck with the Yveltal deck box, sleeves, and coin. It looks like we are up against an Yveltal Garbodor deck. So that would work out really, really well for us, actually. Do win the coin flip, so we 100,000% are going to go first, and we get a very, very nice hand. I mean, this is a really good hand. I mean, I'll be able to start off with Raikou active, Magnezone, or Magnemite. I wish it was a Magnezone that you could just play down. Magnemite and Remoraid on the bench. Heck, I can even play another Remoraid if I want, and we will go first. So that is absolutely terrific for us. And even a Lightning Energy. So, I mean, this was a really good first hand, and the only question is, do I want to Sycamore away everything? And I think, you know what? I want to go ahead and do that. I get another Raikou. I get a Rare Candy. So if there's some way that I can get a Magnezone, that would be absolutely ideal. I could have Professor's Lettered, but I decided not to. That way I wouldn't have just a bunch of energy in my discard pile if I wasn't able to draw into a Magnezone this turn and had to just Sycamore. So, yeah, start off with a pretty solid first turn. I can Magneton. I can evolve my Magnemite into Magneton. I think I'm just going to kind of play this slower because, yeah, I mean, yeah, I could try to go faster and just try to risk it going for a Magnezone immediately by just Sycamoring away my hand, but I'll be Sycamoring away a Rare Candy, and I'd rather just play it safe, especially because of the advantage we're going to have in this game with the type advantage. Only have to play 3 energy onto my Raikou in order to be able to knock out literally everything my opponent has. Heck, even a Fighting Fury Belted Yveltal EX will go down in one shot to a Thunder Lance. So I'm honestly not worried at all about this matchup. I mean, yeah, if I don't draw anything at all, then that could be annoying. But otherwise, I think I have a pretty... I mean, I have a good enough type advantage, and once I get a Magnezone up, I will be able to just absolutely obliterate... once I get a Magnezone up, I'll be able to absolutely obliterate my opponent with the Raikous. Heck, even with Magnezone. Magnezone would do enough to not knock out a Fighting Fury Belted boosted Yveltal EX, but still. And my opponent is actually going to be able to get a Pitch Black Spear up turn 1. However, I don't... He has to draw into a switch in order to be able to get his Yveltal out of the active position, because even though he can attach a Floatstone, Fright Knight will hurt him too, so that's something that I do not have to worry about. And let's see, can I get a Ultra Ball? Alright, fishing. We're going fishing for an Ultra Ball. We get a Rough Seas, so I guess I should have used better phrasing. So I am just going to go ahead and evolve the Magnemite into a Magneton, play a little bit slower, play the Lightning onto my Raikou on the bench, just because if I get a Magnezone up, I can attach as much energy per turn as I want, and then Sycamore away my hand to draw into more cards. Well, that's nice. What I do get is I get a VS Seeker. Why couldn't I have gotten that Magnezone earlier? And what I can even do is get another Magnemite up. That way my opponent can't just Lysandre in my Magnezone and knock it out. And I really don't want to play my Pikachu-EXs down because those things will be absolutely targets for pitchback spears. Especially the fact that Pikachus can get knocked out. Well, I guess it doesn't have 120, it has 130, so it'll take 3 pitchblack spears to knock it out. But I would rather my opponent not be able to get the full value of those, especially because my opponent doesn't have an Yveltal EX down yet, just has a couple of those Yveltals in. Without an EX on my side, Pitch Black Spear really is not worth it, because then it's just a 3 energy attack that does 60. And that is absolutely nothing. Heck, it'll be doing 40 with my Shining Body ability. So I am not worried at all. My opponent is going to... Well, what's he going to do? Lysandre. So what's my opponent going to Lysandre in? Probably the Magneton, I would guess. Magneton, or just the Remoraid, okay. Well, I mean, I have an energy in my hand. I can just attach it to the Remoraid and then retreat it and then Sycamore away my hand. So I'm not too worried overall. And there, I get an Ultra Ball. So what I can go ahead and do is Ultra Ball, get rid of the Pikachu and the N. I guess it really doesn't matter as long as I don't get rid of the Sycamore and VS Seeker and the Lightning Energy. Grab a Magnezone, go ahead and Rare Candy up my Magnemite into the Magnezone. I'm doing that just because, I mean, I need 2 of these things. I need 2 things in order to get a Magnezone with that setup. However, if I just draw into a Magnezone, then I can evolve my Magneton. So that was just the much more eco-friendly play overall. And would you look at that, I draw into some very nice stuff. I'm going to retreat my Remoraid into my Raikou, go ahead and double Magnetic Circuit the 2 Lightning Energies onto my Raikou. I can even Ultra Ball for an Octillery, not a Octillery, an Octillery, which is what I think I'm going to do. There's another Magnezone in the deck somewhere. Okay, there's my Fisherman, and I have 5 more Lightning Energies in the deck, so I'm in a very, very, very good spot right now. Go ahead and evolve the Remoraid, play the Fighting Fury Belt. I know it has no effect right now, but that doesn't really matter at this point because I will be knocking that sucker out. And, ooh, I even draw a Fisherman. So, 1 Lightning Energy, it's not really worth it. So what I am going to do is just go ahead and Thunder Lance, knock out this Yveltal, and take the first prize of the game. And, well, it's Magnezone. So I'll be able to evolve my Magneton into a Magnezone if I so choose. But what I think I'm actually going to do is... So I could Ultra Ball for something and then discard it, but Super Rod back in. I'm trying to think of what route I want to go for. I'm definitely not playing down any EXs because, I mean, I already have my board set up. That's all I need. If my opponent gets a Trubbish up, I'm going to have to prioritize that thing because that will be one way that my opponent can come back, because literally everything in this deck that I rely on relies on an ability. I mean, Raikou not as much, but I mean, don't get me wrong. You still want that ability with Raikou. Like, Shining Body is a free hard charm. I mean, that's just absolutely beautiful. And okay, see the Delinquent from my opponent, not a big deal. Just going to get rid of the Fisherman, the Ultra Ball, and I think the Magnezone. Yeah, because I can always just Super Rod those things right back in my deck. I want to keep the Raikou to be able to play it down and be able to Sycamore for... I mean, I'll be able to Sycamore with a 0 discard if I get something I can work with. And yeah, wow, that Shaman did absolutely nothing. My opponent is just going to promote his Shaman, so giving me 2 more prizes really does not want to worry about that Yveltal. But what I am going to do, go ahead and... Do I want to play the Raikou down? And I think I'll just go ahead and Super Rod, put the Energy, the Magnezone, and... Yeah, let's put back a Pikachu. Why the heck not? That's an attacker if we need it. Going to go ahead and Octillery Abyssal Hand for 2, see if I can get some energy. No, but you know what? I get some solid stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and play the Fighting Fury Belt there. Trainer's Mail, well, there's 3 Lightning Energy. That would have been something cool to see a little while ago. And here's the question. Do I play the other Raikou down? I don't think so. I think for now, I just sit on my hand and go ahead and knock out the Shaman. So whether or not it was a good idea to sit on my hand is yet to be determined. But I think that was fine because I still have resources in my hand. I have the Octillery, I have the Sycamore, I now have an Energy Pouch that I can put on another Raikou and start powering that thing up. That way when it gets knocked out, I do get the energy right back into my hand. So I think I'm in just a phenomenal position. Wow. Is my opponent getting Ninja Boy? So the only reason that my opponent would be playing down his Eviltal, or putting all that energy onto his Eviltal, is if he had a Ninja Boy. Well, I guess technically he was trying to Shaman for more, but you wouldn't put that much energy on a baby Eviltal unless you were trying to Ninja Boy, or have Ninja Boy being the ultimate goal. So I think that's what my opponent's going for at this point. Shamans for 3 cards. My opponent really hasn't gotten anything going at all. I mean, yeah, there is a 5 energy Eviltal right there, but other than that, yeah, I mean, absolutely nothing, and my army of Raikous would have been able to absolutely just murk any possibility of a comeback that he would have had, because he would have to rely on an Eviltal EX, which is just an easy 2 prizes for me with a Magnezone. So yeah, that was a very nice and easy game 1. Raikou just overcoming the best deck in the format right there. So I mean, yeah, this is obvious. My Raikou Magnezone is obviously the new best deck in the format if I'm able to take on that. But my complete lying aside, let's go ahead and try to find another one. Alrighty, we have found another one against just Missify, JS Miffy, I don't even know. But it looks like, I mean, it must be our lucky day, because it looks like we're up against another Eviltal Garbodor deck, and as long as we can get a Magnezone going before my opponent gets a Garbodor up, we will be in a great position. We're already off to a little bit of a worse start than last game because we are going second, but I still, well, if I didn't have those 2 VS Seekers in my hand, this would have been a pretty solid hand to start with. But otherwise, okay, we see the Ninja Boy, the Secret Rare Ultra Ball, which is getting reprinted, haha. But either way, I'm in a, I don't know, I think, well, my start's good enough as long as my opponent doesn't just get a Garbodor turn 2, which would make me cry. And, alright, we see the Darkrai. So this is not an Eviltal Garbodor deck. I mean, I obviously should have known by the whole dragon theme, but you know what? I tend to ignore things when I don't see them, or I tend to see them and then just pretend they don't exist. But yeah, we do see the, yeah, okay, this is a Darkrai Garbodor Giratina deck, which is still really, really cool and is one of the better decks in the format. So let's see how my random, kind of budget, sort of-ish, how my budget-ish Raikou deck can face up against one of the decks that is considered a threat in this format. But the way I am just waiting on my opponent, probably going to grab the Hoopa. Yeah, we see that right there. So more than likely going to search out like a Shaman and a Giratina and maybe even another Darkrai. That would be my guess at least. But on the bright side, we are going to be taking a pretty solid, I mean, I guess the prize exchange could go our way if I'm able to get up and going, and I think Energy Pouch will be absolutely invaluable, so I'll need to get that thing down as soon as possible. And I guess, what is my opponent doing? So my opponent took their sweet time. Yeah, okay, so we see the Darkrai, Giratina, and a Shaman. I was right. I mean, then again, it wasn't too overly difficult to figure out, and my opponent will just Shaman for some more cards. Thank the Lord that Hypnotoxic Laser isn't in this format. Actually, you know what? I like Hypnotoxic Laser, I'll be honest, but that's completely unrelated. I just don't have to worry about taking damage this turn. And as long as my opponent doesn't go crazy on like the Double Dragons and Max Elixirs, my Raikou should be able to survive the turn, and I would really... Crap. So, Parallel City comes down. So, there's that. I'm limited. Oh, no, my opponent plays the Parallel City down, faces them, so that get rid of the Shaman and the Hoopa, 2 easy targets, and oh no. Oh no. Please, no. So I would have, if I would have grabbed that with the Trainer's Mail, I would have had the potential to draw all 4 VS Seekers turn 1, and that is disgusting. So I'm going to have to discard 3 VS Seekers in my first turn. I hate that. Like, that's just absolutely horrible. Grab an Ultra Ball, and guys, I'll be honest, this is looking pretty bad. I am going to go ahead and Professor's Letter to get a couple energies. That way I have discard fodder with my Ultra Ball. That way I don't have to get rid of too much. But I am just going to grab a Remoraid because otherwise I'm just stuck with an Octillery. Or otherwise I have no means of draw support. I have nothing good in my hand. And yeah, this is a horrible, horrible start for us. I mean, it's not that bad in the sense that, okay, we technically have an out next turn. with an Octillery being able to draw some cards and having a Magnemite already down. That way if I draw the right things for a Magnezone, I can go from there. But having to discard 3 VS Seekers turn 1 is horrendous, and not being able to get a backup attacker online immediately either is kind of scary. So I'm really hoping my opponent doesn't hit a bunch of like VS Seekers and well, not VS Seekers, but doesn't hit a bunch of Max Elixirs and the Double Dragon, and my opponent just switches out for a Mew. Yeah, that makes sense. Get that thing out of there. Don't have to worry about it. Get the Hydreigon out of there, as it's not going to be doing much. So what I can do, play the Raikou down, evolve the Remoraid into an Octillery, play another Remoraid down, because why not? 2 Octillery are always better than 1. And then Abyssal Hand for 3 cards. Hopefully Rare Candy Magnezone. Nope, none of that. So what I am going to do is Ultra Ball, get rid of the Ultra Ball and the regular energy and the regular lightning energy, and don't have a Magneton. So that is absolutely terrific. My Magneton is prized. So this match is going downhill fast. This is going very, very badly, because don't even get a supporter turn 2 again. And also one of my prizes is a key card that I would need right now. And this is just this is bad, guys. This is very bad. On the bright side, my opponent hasn't gotten too terrifically fast of a start either, so I can kind of just bank on that, and I will be able to start Thunderlancing next turn. I mean, as long as my opponent doesn't knock me out, I will be able to start Thunderlancing. The Dark Pulses are going to start hurting a lot more, and my opponent, please don't have a Shaman. Please have all of your other Shamans prized. Please. Ultra Balls for nothing. Oh, that's because the Shaman was in his hand. Alright. So that's cool. That's completely cool. But on the bright side, I will have a second Octillery up, so I can really, really hopefully draw into a Rare Candy off an Abyssal Hand. But a Dark Pulse will do some solid damage to my Raikou, not knock it out, set it up next turn for the knockout, and then I get the Brigette, which is, again, absolutely useless. Actually, what I can do is Brigette for like a couple Raikou, but meh. Ooh, I have an N. So what I am going to do is, yeah, there's enough energy in my discard pile that I don't want there. I'm going to go ahead and Pikachu and both of those back in, and then go ahead and just heal up my Raikou, and then N for 6, get a better hand. Oh, thank the Lord, this is a lot better of a hand. So what I can do is Ultra Ball, get rid of the Rare Candy and the Magnemite for... Get a Magnezone up, just get that thing up and going. I can attach energy to the Raikou, and then I can always just Abyssal Hand next turn. Like, I can always just Abyssal Hand. Well, first off, actually, I have another Octillery. I completely forgot that I have a second Abyssal Hand that I can use. So if I can get another Raikou up, that would be absolutely ideal. And, oh, there we go. Perfect. So what I am going to do, Magnetic Circuit, once again, get the energy... Get 5 energy onto my Raikou, maybe. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just get as much damage onto this Darkrai as possible. Thunderlance, hit the Darkrai for 150 damage. Just set that thing up to be KO'd next turn easily with another Raikou. Thank the Lord for Energy Pouch, because I'll get all that energy back into my hand. I have an N and a Sycamore for next turn, once my opponent knocks out something. And again, not relying on the Pikachu-EX at all. Honestly, the Pikachu-EX is only really there if you have like 4 energy in your hand and you really just need a big knockout. Pikachu-EX is a good backup attacker, but really you want to focus on using Raikou 99% of the time. And alright, my opponent gets a Giratina up, so that thing's going to be scary. Luckily, it's without a Fighting Fury Belt, so if I get another energy... Yeah, if I can get another lightning energy in one way or another, I will be able to knock that sucker out with a Thunderlance. So it's wondering what my opponent is going to do. So he could easily knock out my Raikou with his Darkrai right now. There's no question about that. And ends me into a brand new hand. So you know what? I'm completely okay with this. As long as I have a single energy, I'll be fine. Well, I mean, of course, a single energy would be too much to ask for. Either way, we are still in a good position. Not even down a prize yet. We will go down 1 prize, but at this point we are set up enough to where we're in a phenomenal position. Our opponent doesn't have to worry about we don't have to worry about our opponent doing much, and counters my Rough Seas with the Parallel City, makes me discard an Octillery, but you know what? That Octillery already did its job. It got me the cards that I needed to be able to just attack and get going and get set up. So now I'm in a phenomenal position. My opponent doesn't look like they have a Garbodor at all. Are just going to retreat manually into the Giratina. But you know what? I'm going to get all this energy back. I have a Sycamore. I have Octillery. I have plenty of ways of drawing into a 6th Lightning Energy. I will be fine. But what I am going to do is immediately Magnetic Circuit. I mean, I could have manually attached, but I figure Magnetic Circuit just makes more sense. Because, I don't know. It makes zero, it makes zero difference if you manually attach or Magnetic Circuit. And I am just going to Sycamore away my hand, hopefully draw into one more Lightning Energy, which I do. And would you look at that? This Giratina is about to get knocked out just in one turn. Like, in one turn, I went from 0 energy on this Raikou to 6, knocking out my opponent's Giratina, wiping out all the energy that my opponent had on board. I even draw into a Lysandre and more energy. So I really could not be in a much better position right now. In fact, the only way that I could be in a little bit better of a position is if I had an energy pouch on my Raikou. But of course, I couldn't attach energy I couldn't attach tools last turn due to Chaos Wheel, and I couldn't play anything else. And my opponent is just going to Lysandre in the Magnezone. Well, I mean, he'll be able to get me damaged a little bit, but I have a Switch in my hand. I'll just be able to switch right back out into my Raikou, and then I'll be able to knock out this Fighting Fury Belt boosted Darkrai. That is ridiculous. So I'll be able to do 230 damage, and you guys are seeing it right here. We're going to have a 9 energy Raikou on board. That is absurd. Are all my Rough Seas in the discard pile? Only one, but you know what? My opponent has nothing to respond. I'm just going to Thunderlance. Knock out my opponent's Darkrai, and then, there's the Magneton. About time you decided to show up. And I have the Lysandre next turn. I didn't Sycamore because I'd be getting rid of my last VS Seeker, which would get rid of my Lysandre, which I don't want. And also, I would have drawn out my deck, but that's beside the point. Actually, that is completely the point. I would have drawn out my deck, would have lost, would have gotten rid of the VS Seeker, would have gotten rid of the Lysandre. It just would not have been a good idea to Sycamore that turn, or even just end, because I had all the resources I needed in my hand anyway. My opponent is going to play down a Hydreigon, and then end me to 2. Doesn't matter, I have an Octillery, and that is the power of Octillery. When your opponent ends you late game down to a low hand, you can just Octillery and get some pretty... My opponent just gave away the game. What is he doing? My opponent literally just gave away the game by going to Shaman. Like, I probably would have drawn into my VS Seeker through, or my Lysandre through Octillery plus Trainer's Mail, but there's no guarantee of that. My opponent literally just retreated into Shaman and threw the game. Granted, we were able to hit it for 500 damage, which, hey, there's no kill like overkill, right? So you saw a 10 energy Raikou absolutely plow through my opponent's deck. I do think my opponent misplayed a little bit by getting rid of all the energy that they had on board in basically one turn by manually retreating the Darkrai into the Giratina to knock me out, because when I knocked out the Giratina, I wiped out all the energy, and you already saw that I had 5 energy that would be back into my hand thanks to Energy Pouch. But regardless, this is still a very, very, very cool and fun deck, and also is a counter to the best deck in the format right now. So yeah, there's that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. And this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.